All right, you guys are listening to From the Pitch Up. Welcome to Tulip City Social Club. I'm your host, Matt Dominguez, and then also have another host, which is my co-host, Paulo. And then we are two interns that are a part of a growing amateur soccer club, and then we want to take you through the process of going over the last 3 years and what we have next within the growing club. And then today is our guest, Matt Davis.
Hello. Man, it's been 3 years already. Whew, okay. Yeah, there's going to be some stuff to talk about today. Hey everybody, I'm Matt Davis. I'm the executive director for Tulip City United. Thanks for having me on, you guys. I'm excited to be the first guest for this. Yeah, I'm excited to see where you take this podcast. It's gonna be neat.
Yeah, excited to kind of learn with the audience a little bit about the club. We're new interns, so it's our first year working at the club. I was a player on the team last year, and now I'm kind of taking a front office role this year. So super excited to learn with Matt about the club and kind of interview different people within the club, front office, and players. And also, we're looking to maybe do some interviews just with other people in the industry overall. So I'm super excited. So yeah, Matt, if you could just kind of get us started with, I guess, how the club was founded, who were the founders, when it was founded, kind of just that foundational period.
Yeah, maybe the how and the why, perhaps. Yeah. Um, yeah. Let's see. So back in summer of 2018, I had started to think about one of the reasons I fell in love with soccer was the communities that I see it building wherever it touches throughout the world. I want to be a part of that sort of community, and so I started looking for something equivalent for me to be a part of. And the nearest thing that I saw was out in Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids FC was going, and that was pretty exciting. But at the same time, it's a long drive out there just to see those games. And I started to look into whether or not there's something similar, the same sort of deal happening here in Holland. I'd reached out to like the Holland Rovers, the USA Club, and I'd gone to some of the Hope College games. No one was really doing quite the community level, just fun fellowship around sport that I was looking for to be a part of. What I was really seeing in Grand Rapids. I I got started, I think, primarily because of that yearning for community. Um, I think that I grew up in Indiana, and when my wife and we moved up from Indiana to Holland in 2016 after we got married, got a job up here, fell in love with the city, and my word, what a wonderful city Holland is. I love this area. I'm excited to be able to call myself a citizen here for it's going on 7 years now. Um, but outside of my church community, I was noticing that I was having a hard time getting plugged into to more getting more roots set. So it was very nice to be able to be coming into Holland as a Christian because there's so many daggone churches. There's a lot of them in Holland, and you can really have your pick. But as soon as you know find yourself rooted in one, you get that friendship, that fellowship is immediate. Um, Outside of the church, though, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. I tend to be relatively introverted, and a lot of the guys and gals I work with, are kind of the same. We are on friendly terms, but we don't really hang out after work. So, as part of wanting to set down roots, I started to volunteer in the community some more. I joined. I went to some city hall meetings, and one of the things that they were asking for here in Holland. Um, at town hall, city council meetings was, hey, we've got numerous vacancies in some of our committees that we need volunteers for. And so I had looked into that, and I got involved with the zoning board of appeals, and I've been doing that since I have been a citizen here in Holland. So that's going on, I think, 4 years now. I've enjoyed that more than I thought I would. Uh, and I just appreciated being able to put down those roots. But when it came to the level of camaraderie that I was seeing in soccer that had made me fall in love with it, I was yearning for something a bit different that I wasn't really finding anywhere. And so I thought there's got to be something that I can get plugged into around here that's happening. So when I looked around and wasn't really seeing that, I said, okay, well, if I don't see something in the community that I think would be of benefit to it, why don't I try to get people together and make it? So one of the first things I did was I reached out to um, I reached out to a number of different soccer organizations, but I also reached out to um, what was it, Rebecca LeClaire and crew at her business. She runs Startup to Success agency, and that was like primarily I went to her primarily for advice on, okay, once this gets going, we're gonna need to get the word out. They're a marketing startup business focused type of support company, and that's really what felt like it'd be a good fit for once this gets going. But I just wanted to go there, and I told them what I was looking to do, and just wanted to get like a ballpark of, what would it cost to do XYZ in order to get the word out that we wanted to start up a club. Um, and Rebecca and crew fell in love with the mission so much that they went in pro bono. They worked and joined the club and became a big part of the club, a big part of the club early on. And so that's how it really got started. We incorporated in, I think it was March of 2019. Rebecca Leclaire and Trent Ramos, who was working for her at the time, and I were the principal officers who incorporated, and then John DeClouch, who was a part of the network for Rebecca, came in and became the helmsman pretty soon after we started it up officially and officially incorporated. So we got the ball rolling, so to speak. Oh man, I gotta be careful about my sports puns. Yeah, we got things started and got the word out. And we brought in numerous folks from the community, from the soccer community, to get them on board, or to at least get their advice on what this should look like, how this could be run. We had already looked at several teams, had very graciously provided their information on what it requires to start up a minor league soccer team. So, one of the big ones for us was Kingston Stockade out in Kingston, New York. They published basically this long list of everything that they went through the first year to get started from the ground up. And it was a group of people that had never really run a soccer club before. So it was, amateur folks that were getting together to make this thing they've never made before. And they also broke down the financials, which was a big part of it. So we really saw that and thought, okay, well, this is attainable. We were going to be worried that it was going to be very expensive to get a minor league soccer team started. But it was not, it didn't seem as daunting. We thought, okay, yeah, no, we can definitely do this. We can find support to make this work. So we got started and pushed in earnest through the summer of 2019. We did fundraising. We had all sorts of folks joining as uh, different sorts of advisors. So we had primarily the four of us were on the voting board, if you will, and then we probably had, man, we had at least, I would say we had at least eight more people who were a part of the board, but were not voting members. They were there because they had expertise in some element of it. We had a variety of folks coming in to kind of give us advice as to how we can do this element of running the club and how we can do that. And so that's really how we got started. And as you guys probably are aware, we just happened to start a soccer club at one of the worst times to start a soccer club, because when 2020 rolled around, we were getting really excited. We were pumped So we're coming in through January. We're like, oh wow, okay, we've got guys on our squad now. We've got a roster. We've got coaches. We found a venue. Man, this is coming together. It's happening. And yeah, it didn't happen. March came through, and so what was that? A year roughly after incorporating, COVID hit, and we knew we couldn't put on what we wanted to do. It was going to be a matter of safety. Everybody was understandably relatively scared for what was going on. This was totally unprecedented. So we just said we're going to put this on hold. We can't do it this year. We'll see how things shake out. And then the next year rolls by, and a lot of stuff has not really changed. We still had quite a concern for people's safety, and so we ended up voting to continue to postpone until there was no question of there being safe conditions for our players to get together and play, as well as our community to come out and support them together. So uh, yeah, that took us back a couple years, and there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened in between there, and that sent folks to different places. Rebecca, who had been a major part of it from the get-go, she's running like a couple businesses, and she was very busy before COVID, and she has, I think, like 7 kids. Um, and she's just she's a badass that can do a lot of work and deal with a lot of stress in ways that I can't imagine. So when COVID rolls through, she had to realign. Understandably, her priorities had to be her businesses and her kids. So she had to step away from the club, and I totally understand that. Trent Ramos went out to Florida for better weather. Ugh, harumph. He likes to golf, and every now and then I see him in the winter times with some very lovely looking photos of him on the golf course. So I don't blame him for moving. He moved down to Florida to pursue, I believe it was a promotion within his company, but I think it's mostly he just wanted to relocate because of the nicer weather. Yeah, because you can't play golf in the winter here. Uh, so he and his wife are enjoying Florida, I know. And yeah, a lot of folks that had gotten on board just said like the timing was off. I can't keep doing this. I can't dedicate the time I need um, to make this happen. And so we ended up back in towards the end of the year 2020. John DeClouch was still on board as the executive director, but it was just he and Brian Salinas and myself. And we really thought, okay, well, this is going to be really rough. This is going to be a lot smaller than we had hoped it would be, and this is going to be a lot of work for us to do because of how few of us there are. And yeah, at the start of the year, uh, John was just looking at all the stuff that had to happen and the time frame that it had to happen in, and he was dealing with changing circumstances in his life, including a new job. And so he just said, I can't, guys. I'm sorry, I'm out. Um, so at that point, I took over the helm as executive director, and I said, well, we're going to give this a go. People put money, and people have been expecting and excited. I think COVID, didn't destroy the dreams for a lot of folks, and for some, it especially highlighted our need for community. When you get the hermit life for a little while forced upon you, you start to realize, oh, as introverted as I may be, like I need people. I need to be out, and I miss folks. I miss that human connection. And so a lot of people I think were really looking forward to things normalizing and return to normalcy. And something to look forward to that was abnormal was that there was going to be a soccer team in the summer. So I said, I'm going to do whatever I can to make this a reality, even if it's small scale. I want to just get it going. That was one of the things I remember. Bruce Lane from the USA club, when we interviewed him very early on in the process of starting up the club, he had told us that Holland is going to be behind you, but it's going to be much more of a. We want to make sure that you build it. Like build it first, and we will come. So I thought, I think this is going to be good for our community. I think this is going to be potentially huge for our community over the long run if we can get it going. We just have to get it going. So if we plant that small seed, we might be able to see a strong oak tree in many years' time. And that's the goal. The ultimate goal striving towards is that distance, and what that future organization can do for Holland and the West Michigan community broadly. So I ended up making two decisions really early on that were really wise, and I had no idea just how clever I was being, because I had no way of knowing just how good it was. I got David Schroeder on board as a member of the board. David had been a passionate fan and was really looking forward to being a part of the club. Um, since we started. He was a early promoter, and he came in and did a lot of work. He, especially once we got going for the operations, he did so much for us over the summer for hosting those matches. He and his wife Sue were very integral in making those making those home matches go smoothly. Um, and the other big decision was getting Greg Sighthamel on board as head coach. I had heard from folks in the community, because yeah, I remember I've only been in Holland for going on 7 years now. I've not really been deeply connected to the soccer community, but when Greg Sighthamel's name would come up, folks would talk about what a great human being he is, and I am now officially a member of the Greg Sighthamel fan club. He is a wonderful person who has done so much work to get this club up from the ashes. He was a huge help, and we could not have done that first year as well as we did without David and Greg coming on board. That was a huge that was a huge couple of decisions that really got us going and made this a reality. Um, so yeah, we had our first year last year, and Greg did a great job. We had tremendous players. I had expected, because of that narrow timeline to get stuff going, I had thought this is going to be so sloppy. I'm just going to be happy if things go off without, total derailment. I was worried for embarrassment too, because the the one thing that I feared more than just the idea collapsing in on itself and not having the thing at all was that it goes so poorly that it discourages any folks in the future from trying to do the same thing. Um, that would have been even worse. But we ended up having it, the year. I mean, we made mistakes. We did. We made some mistakes, but overall, we did a stellar job of bringing some really talented guys to play for our city, having a great venue, Holland Public Schools at the Holland High School, a soccer specific venue with just the right amount of seating, and just the location is great. We had kids and families that were just biking or walking from their houses around it. I love that it's in the city that it serves. It's not like a lot of other teams have, where it's a high school football field out in the boonies, way away from everyone. It's much more in the heart of the city, so there's a lot more of that communal element happening. So we had better turnouts than we had anticipated. Our first match, we had over 400 folks attending. Um, that went through the gate. So I mean, that was already our first match. We were looking around like, holy cow, what is going on? Everybody, we packed the house on our first one, and so we were very excited, but we were also a little bit intimidated. But yeah, we had a great year off the pitch, but the guys that we got on onto the roster were phenomenal. I had not also expected to get that much talent in our first year. Secretly, I'll blab it now, but secretly, my main goal for the team was that they not be at the bottom of the Midwest Premier League when all was said and done. That was my main thing. Is like, please, we're the new guys on the block. We're going to do as best as we can, but I really just don't want us to. I don't want us to finish at the bottom. I don't want to be at the bottom. And our guys tied for second. So making us one of the best amateur summer squads in the state of Michigan, and I'm very proud of our guys. And yeah, it was also just fun to watch them. It was fun to watch them uh, exhibit their talents. We had so much fun watching, and like made new friends with folks that I probably never would have met had we not been doing this. And I was looking around the stands and seeing all of Holland seemed to be represented in the stands. It was a beautiful thing, and I called that a major success given the amount of time that we had to accomplish the task. It was a very big deal, and so I'm very much looking forward to what this next season holds because I'm already seeing more interest and growth. I'm very glad to have you guys joining us for the summer and contributing your efforts to making this club even better. Yeah, I'm just very excited for where we're going, um, and yeah, very very proud of what we were able to accomplish and where we've been.
Yeah, it's super cool to kind of hear because I was a part of that first roster that signed back in 2019 and wasn't able to have a season. Um, Kind of coming out of high school, and I was like, I need a summer team to play on before going to college, playing at Hope. Um, and I signed for that Tulip team, and everything got messed up, and there was no soccer that summer. So I kind of was like, oh, that's probably the end of Tulip City. That was their first season. But it's super cool to see that I guess there's perseverance. And as soon as I heard that Tulip City was popping back up, I was like, got to go play for them. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that was super cool. I kind of want to go into, I guess, the details of what it was like, I guess, picking the league that you wanted to play in. Why did you pick the Midwest Premier League? Picking the coaches that you wanted. I mean, you said Greg's a great guy, but also what other reasons, I guess, was there for bringing Greg onto the coaching staff instead of maybe Hope College's coach or another high school's coach or just someone that's in club soccer? Why Greg? So I guess both of those questions: why the league and why did you pick the coaching staff?
So yeah, why the league? Midwest Premier League looked to me like at the time it was going to be a better fit for what I wanted from the club. I know that the UPSL at the time had, I think, shifted to a different schedule, and what was it, the 2021 season that we had voted not to participate in. In the UPSL, the Grand Haven Admiral started up, and up in Grand Haven, I had talked to the founder of those guys, was Cody Harrell. And Cody had told me that he was not very pleased with the way that it had gone with the UPSL. Their divided season, what it had done was if you did not qualify for national tournament play, your season was done by mid-June. Um, and so by mid-June, they were basically done with league play, and they had to start looking for exhibitions. What I really wanted was a regional focused league. I wanted to have a focus on regional clubs. I don't see the value in a lot of these small scale clubs playing teams in wide, very broad um, number of states. I don't need to have guys playing down in Georgia. That's hard on the coaches. That's hard on the players. It costs a lot of money to do that, and you don't really see a return on that investment beyond, I think, maybe some bragging rights, um, because a lot of folks around here, myself included, would not really be interested in flying or driving really long distances to see these soccer games. But if you look at more regional rivalries, that's that's what you see within colleges, for example. You tend to see the more regional rivalries getting more interest from fans. You see them getting more away fans coming, and there's just more excitement. So up here, I think Calvin and Hope are the kind of the rivalry that has been going for a while now, and so those games always get the bump in attendance and interest. Um, and so I went to Purdue, so that was usually Purdue and IU for us was the rivalry game where there was a lot more interest, and you'd be much more willing to drive down to Bloomington if it was a Purdue IU game, just because it's not terribly far, and those are the guys you want to beat. Um, and so I think that the locality is important to develop fan bases and keep costs down, yes, but also to just like make it more interesting. We usually see when rivalries start, it's usually folks that are nearby, especially if you look over in Europe, let's say, like England is a great example where they've got the Derby or the Derby playoffs, where if you've got teams in London, there are numerous London clubs, and when they play each other, those are called London derbies, and those usually draw even more attention than regular games where you might see them playing against even teams up in Manchester, let's say. Some of the big teams, City and United are both really big teams, so you'll see big draws for those as well. But you always have big interest in rivalry games, even when the teams are not particularly doing so well. And that's just because that rivalry built up over time, and it's just seen as like you know having fun with folks, and building up those fun rivalries. You don't see, at least to my knowledge, I haven't really seen rivalries, even in like NFL levels where it's one team on the eastern side of the country versus a team on the western side of the country. That usually does not happen unless you're able to keep having them play each other over and over again. And they don't divide the teams that way. So really local rivalries is important to interest, to getting people to go to away games, to having away fans come to your stands, to building up that community and that interest and just having fun. Um, so the Midwest Premier League really appealed to me as it was broken down. It's just within the Midwest, and even then they break it down further. It's not we're not playing teams out in Iowa and Minnesota. We are playing teams in Michigan and Northern Indiana. And I think that's a more reasonable ask too for our guys that are doing this if they've got summer jobs. I don't like the idea of having them go really far out, having to deal with that on top of everything else. Um, and then for the coaching staff, I was primarily interested in Greg Sihimmel because of his reputation within the community. I, I was more interested in uh, people who would say that Greg was just a great person, a great coach. Um, that really led me to think that's the sort of person I want for a community-oriented club. Um, Dave Brandt was our initial pick for head coach, and he was the head coach of Hope College at the time. So back in 2019, I had met with him and talked with him, and we got along fine. But I think one of the things that uh, both impressed me about him, but also kind of turned me against him, was that he was so used to high level soccer in organizations and how that would be provided to him. So he really felt like the sort of Division 1 personality of a coach, where it really felt like he's up here and we can't provide him with our little community club what he would expect to be able to meet, um, in terms of resources for making any level of soccer team. He'd been a coach with the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Like he has some serious credentials, but he did not really seem he seemed like a really high pedigree coach for us to have at at the level of play we were looking to be at. But at the same time, I didn't see that meshing with our community organization. That he was very much set on this is going to be the greatest team ever, and we're going to win, and it's going to be all focused on performance. And I like I said, I only wanted us to not finish at the bottom. I was worried about him scouting players from a long distance away, and that actually did occur. So Coach Brandt had brought in. I think we were being asked to find housing for 3 Brazilian guys, and that was when I kind of felt like, oh, okay, this is different from what we had anticipated. We were looking to primarily build up the talent of local guys. I don't even mean Holland guys. I mean more like regional guys that are doing college in nearby Kalamazoo, maybe down so far as Chicago, but Muskegon, uh, Grand Rapids, so that we aren't having to find housing for international students, international players, and worry about like language barrier and making sure they have visas and everything checked out. It's like, whoa, okay, that's a little bit different from what we were looking to do. And Greg Sighthamel being so integrated into the community was exactly what I was looking for. He knows so many people. He's got a great network of folks that he can reach out to and let them know, like, hey, this is what we're working on. This is a great example of that. I think is that when we've had our tryouts, Coach Sighthamel has invited other coaches from the area, and they have come out and helped him manage the large number of guys who have wanted to be a part of the Tulip City United roster. Um, and I don't think that you would have seen something like that with Dave Brandt's level. He would have demanded that we would have multiple tryouts with smaller numbers of guys, and or he would just pick guys that he knows. Um, so there would be that element of difference as well. And so I really liked knowing Greg Sighthamel's reputation in the community already as just being a really well-respected guy. That put him at the top of the list for me of who I would choose for coaches. Um, and yeah, I did know also, I think there's NCAA rules that say like the coach of a team cannot have his guys on for something like Tulip City United. So if we choose coaches for let's say we have a coach from Hope come in and do that, I don't believe that we're allowed to bring in some Hope College guys, or there's a certain number that we can't surpass. Um, I didn't really feel like wading into that and making that a little bit more difficult too. So there was also, I guess, a little element of hoping that by bringing in Coach Sighthamel, that he would be able to link us together with the schools in the area. Because we are looking at one of the purposes of building this club on the field, especially, is looking to make sure that local talent is captured and developed further. So when we've got collegiate athletes that are looking for serious, they're looking for serious play over the summer to keep the rust from forming. This is the sort of club that they should want to be a part of. And at the same time, I'm also looking at, okay, what high school level guys are really talented, they're about to graduate, and this would be a great way for them to get experience practicing with the next level of guys they're going to be facing on the pitch at a college level. So yeah, we had a couple of those guys join the roster last year. There's
Mhm.
Isaiah Arredondo and Brett and Timmer, I believe, had just graduated. I think they were both from
Yeah.
Holland High, and that was encouraging to see. I like that element of it. Um, I wanted to see more of a spread. I also just didn't want to see only guys from a single college and it's only guys from college. I appreciated having older guys like Charlie Wick and Wicks and Andrew Marsh. Um, having older guys there, older than the collegiate athletes who are still really good. Charlie was really good. Andrew's really good. It's nice to also be able to showcase that, like, hey, these guys aren't in college playing right now, but they're still really good, and they can still show off their talents and have fun playing at very high levels of competition. And I really appreciated that spread, and I feel like Greg was the right call to make for that as well. I think that spread was beautiful, and I don't know that if we had a higher level coach, if that would have been I don't know if that would have been what they would have gone for. I imagine that they probably would have had a much narrower perspective on what they wanted the team, the roster to look like. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So uh, so I got Greg Sighthamel on board as head coach, and then Greg in turn got Chris Hoffland on board as uh, the assistant coach. That was another great win. Chris is also a wonderful guy, and I've appreciated his ability because he is connected to the local youth academy clubs. He's been able to be a vital link to communicating with them, and I loved how last May we were able to get a bunch of local kids that were on these academies to come out and do the walkouts with the players. love it. That's so nice. And Chris was able to facilitate that relatively easily, and that was a big win. But also, I just appreciate him and Greg and their demeanor towards the players. I've gone to numerous practices, and I really just appreciate their approach to coaching. I really appreciate it. Having played sports myself, I know just how much of a difference your coach can make in terms of how they treat you as a person when they're on the field with you, when they're on the court, whatever, wherever you are, how they treat you as a person makes a big difference. I've really appreciated their demeanor, their professionalism. Yeah, I've been very pleased with both of them. So that's been great. I've loved having them on as coaches. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can just say from like a marketing perspective and people that are maybe looking to start their own clubs or run their own clubs or kind of just interested in sports management as a whole. I think it's been super cool to have Coach Greg and Coach Hofflin along just because I mean they put butts in seats. People come out to support them because they are known in the community and people community members come out to games and come to see them as well as they're all about the local talent. They want local talent on the teams, and I mean having local guys. I mean they get family members out. They get their friends from high school out. They get their friends' families from high school out to games. So I mean, talk about putting people in seats. I think I mean on top of Greg just being a great coach and a great guy and mentor, I think he also brings a lot in just getting the community to engage with the team too. So I love the
Yeah,
decision to have Greg inside, and we'll have him on in the future too to ask him a ton of questions. But
yeah. I've
yeah, it's been
actually
great.
played under Coach Cy Hamill for 3 years in high school. I've been coached under Chris Hoffman too. I mean, coming in as an intern for communications, it's great to see both those guys bring in more community. Makes my job a lot easier because then I can just go out to places like, hey, Coach Cy Hamill, Tulip City. They're like, we're on board already. Perfect. Makes our jobs a lot easier. Gets butts in seats. So I think they've been doing a great job with that aspect.
Yeah, and I guess another question for you, Matt, is kind of so you're not getting paid to take on this role. Coach Hoffman, Coach Greg's not getting paid um,
Hmm.
to take on these roles. They're coaching out of out of the goodness of their heart and because they care about the
Passion.
club and they care about
Yeah.
passion. They care about the community. I guess why do you I guess do this out of passion and I guess what draws you to it and why should other people, I guess, in the community of Holland also invest in the club? And why is it important to
Hmm.
invest in a club like this?
Yeah. I would say for me, when you when you look at getting paid for something, I mean, Greg and Chris have done a phenomenal job. I think I've done a halfway decent job, but for me, the motivation primarily being one of I want this to happen. I don't feel I don't feel that my mentality would go to the right place if I was paid for it right now. Yeah, I just see it as something that I don't really want to be paid for. Honestly, it's work, obviously. Yeah, last year was a lot of work for everybody involved. At the same time, I want to do it for the right reasons, and I'm willing to do all this work for the club without getting paid for it, primarily because of at least for me personally, what it does to my psyche and how I approach and um, treat the club. I think that when money enters the fray for like the front office staff especially, there can be there can be some issues, and then I just noticed that there were issues as well with getting started back in 2019 when there were talks among the directors about money, when there were talks among the coaches about money. It really changed how everyone approached the club, how they approached each other. It I don't necessarily even think that it caused people to butt heads so much as there was now a new level of tension and there was a difference of there's a difference. There's differences of opinion of how well how much is reasonable. Um, in order to make the club work financially, it's been a huge help that the coaches and the front office staff are unpaid. That's obviously a big part of it. But at the same time, it is a seasonal thing as well. I have to remember that I'm not putting in 8 hours a day for this club every day throughout the year. There's waves, it ebbs and flows, and so actually. This year over the summer, it's not going to be nearly as stressful, I think, in part because we've got more hands to help out. But on the other hand, I know what to expect. So I'm less stressed, and so I don't feel like I need to be paid. I think when we were getting started with the club, that discussion of payment was one of I think it set people in the wrong frame of mind, and I think that a number of folks that were part of the non-voting members, I think when they figured out. Um, I think when they figured out that this was not going to be, we're not going to be rolling in dough, um, I think that was part of the reason why during COVID they said, yeah, I don't really think I'm going to keep with this. Um, and part of the reason for that was um, I remember money was the one issue that we did butt heads amongst the voting board. Um, that was the main issue of the day that we saw the most division around. John and I think John and Rebecca were both very much on the, what would you say, the sort of go big or go home style for how this was going to go. They really expected that we were going to be a really big deal right out of the gate, and we're gonna make lots of money. Look at all these other charity organizations and these other nonprofits. They can make so much money. People of Holland are so generous. Like we can make quite a lot of money. So the one of the initial um, one of the initial meetings that we had regarding the budget didn't go very well because we were looking at paying John as a full-time member, like a full-time role, and then we were looking at every single member of the board and voting and non-voting members making well, I would call it significant amounts of money for the work that we were doing. And I pushed back on that pretty hard because for one, that was not borne out by the other teams that have published their information. Like I mentioned, Kingston Stockade. I think there was another team out in Minneapolis that shared theirs, and there was another team, I can't remember if they were in Ohio or Pennsylvania, but some of these clubs are being as transparent as they can with how much money it costs them to run their organizations. And based on that information and based on what we had heard from the Holland area folks like Bruce Lane, who had come in and said like this you're going to need to build it small because people are going to be excited, but when you ask them for lots of time and money, you're probably going to get told no. Once you build it, you can incrementally get there, but you should build it on the smaller scale first. And so that had been more of what I had anticipated us doing was more of the big things have small beginnings mentality of things. So um, I think that when COVID came through and the realities of the financial situation were borne out, I think that since that had been part of the discussion from the beginning, that there was already an expectation for a lot of folks that I'm going to make money from this. And when it looks like I'm not going to make money from this, or as much as I thought I would, I'm just not going to be here. And so COVID was the nice exit where they were able to say, okay, well, this wasn't going to be as big as we thought. We're going to be rolling in dough, and now COVID's hit, so I'm just going to take my exit. So yeah, I think starting out where we're at right now is it feels right. I think when in the distant future, what I anticipate happening to the club, I expect the club to grow incrementally year after year after year, and eventually, I'm not sure when, 20 years, 30 years from now, I am expecting that we will transition to a different format. I'm imagining that ownership of the club would transition to something similar to what Chattanooga AFC does, where you are, or maybe like the Green Bay Packers, where you have members of the community more or less buying in and owning stock, owning votes. Um, Similar to what I think a lot of German clubs do. I think they're even, if I remember right, they have some legal requirements for a lot of those clubs where the fan organization, the community organization, what have you, has to own 51%. It has to have the controlling interest of every club. I think that's kind of interesting to think about. Um, and at that point, what I would be looking at is we would be trying to find a pitch where we would be playing guys all the time. Is when the weather's good, we're going to be looking at having a national league where we're paying guys, maybe not professionally, but maybe semi-pro. Well, semi-pro would be first, obviously, but we would have a semi-pro team with its own grounds where we're playing March through October, and well, maybe not in March. March was pretty wild, as we know from from our tryout. It can be pretty rough in March when we had that snowstorm and that postponed our tryout, and then we had another snowstorm, little bit less of a snowstorm for our tryout that we went ahead and did. Props to the guys who came out for that. Really tough guys. Well done. You showed your Michigan tenacity, and you cleared that first bar for being on Tulip City United by showing that you're Tulip City tough. Because that, yeah, March maybe. So maybe April through October, let's say. So instead of it being a specific, you know, break of time in the summer, it would be the entire soccer playing year. We would be looking at having a team going, and I foresee that um, happening with our club. But I see it far into the future personally. I'm trying to be conservative in terms of what I think the finances is going to be and where things will be with that incremental progress. I think that we will get there. It's exciting to think about getting there, but I'm not counting on us getting there right away.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, we see that actually happening with other clubs across the nation already. There's been a huge explosion of minor league soccer teams in the United States. And so what we're doing here in Holland is not even particularly unique. What we're doing here is maybe unique in that we are one of the community-focused clubs. Props to Lansing Common. They're another community-focused club. They are not about like, let's make money, let's do this big and let's make this a big professional profit generating engine. They're very community minded, and you're kind of seeing a dichotomy breaking down right now where there's community groups like us that are starting local soccer teams because we want to have that level of unique soccer love community um, in our town, and then you've got other teams that are started as business ventures. They are either an extension of, let's say, like a youth academy, or they are just a guy or a group of investors that's saying, hey, we could make money from this. Let's plop a team down here, and we'll buy our place in this league, and we'll get it going.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and we're seeing. I think the UPSL now has like a spring and a fall season, so I think they're already there in terms of filling that spot of the calendar. I was surprised to see that happen so quickly, but I'm yeah, I'm not surprised that it has happened, and I'm curious to see what other leagues will be transitioning to that in the future, because I think that there's going to be demand for that. There's going to be guys that are coming out of college who played throughout high school, college, and are spectacular talents and want to keep playing, and they can make a little bit of money on the side if they go to this city and do this soccer thing in addition to a full-time job or a part-time job, what have you. There's going to be some guys that are going to be convinced that they can make it professionally, and there's clubs forming that are really going to, I think, fill that niche of being okay. Well, you can prove yourself at these clubs, at these minor league teams, and then you're gonna be able to see more guys crossing over to MLS, crossing over to European Liga MX. I imagine that there's going to be, in the next decade, there's going to be quite a lot of interest in seeing guys come about from outside of the college sort of drafting sphere, like we see in a lot of American sports. Yeah, just because there's so many athletes that still are really talented that do not get drafted in the particular usual way, and I think that we kind of lose our talents in a lot of ways by doing it in that way. And I think that there's just a lot of interest in showing the different model and bringing that to the States and making that work and work better here so that we can have even better soccer results and get more guys interested in staying in soccer or getting started in soccer in the first place. I think that the United States has the impetus to become the big soccer country of the world if we really set our minds to it. But one of the things that's against that is definitely the structure and the system that we've developed around sports that we've not really had competition with. So it's still frustrating to see how our national team does, given the size and the tenacity of our sports fans and the sheer amount of athletic talent that our nation has. Um, yeah, if we keep going with reforms, if we keep seeing more and more of this, I'm looking forward to seeing what will become of the U.S. program. I think that that's only going to help the men's team to really excel because right now I don't think that the system we've got is cutting it, and I think
Yeah.
that yeah, the minor league teams are coming in to kind of save the day.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of why I chose um a reason to work for Tulip City. I think it's we're an organization that is really focused about community, about building. It's not about filling our own pockets or or these other reasons. It's really because I think we care about community and we care about the community that soccer cultivates. And I guess when I think about it, it's like, what did you grow up playing? What did you grow up doing? I grew up playing soccer, and the the friendships that came from that, the the passion that came from that, I guess really fired me up. So now I want to be able to give that back to, I guess, the community that I'm working in now, and that's Holland. So I
Mm.
guess how's Tulip City looking to, I guess, engage the youth, because I that is who I guess we're trying to cater to, is the Holland community, and I guess you kind of got to get them young if you really want to have that diehard community behind you. So
I
I guess
I
how are you
wouldn't necessarily
engaging?
say that we are catering to the youth. I think that the youth are a part of the community and therefore they're in our target demographic.
Yeah,
If you're in Holland, we want you to come and see. We want you to come and see and be a part of this community. But as far as skills development is concerned, yeah, we are not really ready and raring to go as in terms of we don't have a youth academy. We are just a collegiate level. I would say a collegiate level club. So in the future, I think that that is going to be something we'll be addressing. We can definitely we can inspire the younger kids to greatness by incorporating them into our games. So that was part of the reason why I enjoyed back in May when we had those youth academy kids do the walkouts. It's like, they didn't just leave right after they walked out with the players. They stayed there and they watched these guys play great soccer. Um, and I would sit sometimes by a mom or a dad who was explaining to their kids who had done the walkout, like explaining to them, like, now look what he's doing there, isn't that cool? Now he's cutting, and now he's going. They formed like a triangle, and that's where they're passing. And that's a beautiful thing to see. So as far as the community is concerned, uh, love to see the kids there. I think that our youth academies are doing a decent job, and I'm interested to see where we fit in and how we can better motivate youth academies in West Michigan in the future. Because I think that I would really like for West Michigan to not just be the destination of choice for guys in college that want to play serious ball. You want to come to Tulip City United. you got an organization behind you. It's not just this isn't some rec club. You've got guys behind you that are making sure everything is smooth and well run, and you're going to have a great time, and you're going to be playing serious soccer with serious guys on the team and against serious opponents. Um, I feel like that's part of it. And then the other part is like when you're playing for us, there's going to be a bunch of people in the stands that are going nuts for you, and you're not going to get that from rec league teams. Maybe your friend's mom will be there and shouting for you, but like it's going to be different. It's going to hit differently when you've got all these strangers from Holland that are screaming. And Paolo, you could probably attest to that to some degree,
Yeah.
having scored some goals for us.
Yeah, and I mean last season I think that was the difference. I know other guys that played for teams on the east side that they are kind of just that they're just trying to be a team. They don't really care about the community aspect, and we would go play there, and they got maybe their parents in the stands. They got maybe 10 to 20 parents in the stands, and then you come to one of our games last summer, and it's I mean our Bearings game probably had around 500 people there, and you score a goal and you run to the sideline
Hmm.
and you're celebrating with them. It's really special. It's those memorable moments that I'm gonna remember for the rest of my life, and especially the people that were at that game are gonna remember those goals for the rest of their life. Um, that community that came from that. So I think that's something special that Tulip City is trying to grow, and I think Holland's the city to do that because I mean we haven't mentioned it. We don't have a basketball team here. We don't have a baseball team. We don't have a hockey team. Um, we are a soccer town. A
Hmm.
big Latino community, big Dutch community, which both love soccer very, very much. So we're just trying to grow as much as possible and kind of trying to grow this into a big organization that can be special. So yeah, I think thanks to the viewers for I guess listening into our first first episode of the Tulip City podcast. Thanks for being part of our social club, and we would love for you guys to share this podcast with your friends, with your family, anybody that you think would be interested in listening to a soccer podcast and kind of coming with us along this journey of uh, growing this club and this community, and as well as follow us on any social media, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. The handle is just Tulip City United. Um, Thanks so much. You guys have any closing thoughts?
No, just thanks to Matt Davis for coming on. It was great hearing about how the club was actually started and like what drove you to keep on uh, working with the club, even though everybody was kind of leaving off one by one. But yeah, I'm really excited for this season.
Yeah, I guess just for the listeners, I'm hoping that you'll come out and become part of this growing community that we're seeing. It was a beautiful thing. Whether you're like me and you're a transplant, you just came into Holland from outside, or if you grew up here, Holland feels like home. And you should come out and become part of the Tulip City United family. Looking forward to seeing you this summer.
Yep. Thanks to all the viewers.